things happen because this community has power.
All of these things you could tie and connect to climate change.
There really needs to be a cultural shift.
We have a lot to learn from our Native American friends.
Shifting the power back into the hands of people who have been marginalized. This is how we celebrate life.
Fun update on the pants. I did sit down and everything was fine. So feeling pretty good about that. How's everybody doing? Are we feeling good? Great. Love that. This next panel coming up is about intergenerational talks around climate change, which is so important to me because I feel like I'm constantly having intergenerational issues. Anybody else teaching their mom how to use Twitter? She just joined, and so far all she has done is tweeted at me. It's like, hey, at Ashley B. Roberts, have a great day. Hey, at Ashley B. Roberts, you're a star. She just found a new way to honk and wave at me from the car. It's very embarrassing. Also, I'm trying to convince my uncle to go solar on his dope-ass doomsday bunker, which has been a big conversation around climate change and generational stuff. He's still on the fence, but I think that IRA is going to be the big thing that pushes him over because he loves money, don't we all? Do you guys know about IRA? Oh, wow. Okay, it's the Inflation Reduction Act. Has nothing to do with inflation. And you should look it up because I'm not going to talk about it in a funny way, and I am here to make you laugh. So I would not be doing my job. But basically, the government's going to give you some money to buy a new car, to get a stove, to get a heat pump. Who doesn't love a heat pump? They're sexy, right? Yeah, they get you hot. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to bring up our moderators for our next panel. Please welcome to the stage Marina Kim and Rowena Koenig.
Hello, everyone. Delighted to be here. Just because we are ready to kick it off, we're actually just going to invite all of the panelists to come on stage right now. Great. We're just going to dive right in. So we are here to discuss how we can tap into the power of the generations, and specifically the power of collaborating across generations as we think about our roles in the climate crisis. So starting with my own introduction, my name is Marina Kim, and I have dark brown hair. I'm half Korean, half white, and I have a dress that has a pop of green and black and white zigzags. And I'm here representing an organization called Co-Generate. I'm a board member. Co-Generate is proud to partner with this organization, and we support the power of intergenerational collaboration, believing that working together is the best way to tackle really hard problems. And so I started my journey as a student activist. 20 years later, I'm now in midlife, but my whole life has really been focused on activating the power of mentors, and specifically elders, because every problem we have has already been faced in some incarnation before. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, and the more we work together, the more we can have a good shot at finding innovations that can work for all. First, just to do a poll of generations. So who here identifies as Gen Z? Okay, we've got some near the front, got it. Okay, millennial, and that includes me. Okay, this is a big subset of the audience. Gen X, okay, some representation, and boomer. Okay, not as many, but they're powerful and mighty. And we've got some, yes, Mimi, we will hear from her on the panel. And so I think there is good representation. I saw the most from Millennial and Gen X here, but really how we shape this conversation is to hear from all ages and all stages. And the purpose of what we're doing here is also to frame positive stories, that there's so many stories of negative things about different parts of generations that it can be criticized, but honestly, there's so many strengths we can tap into and the power that we can tap into together. So with that, I'm honored to co-moderate with Rowena, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Marina. This is a truly exciting panel that I think speaks to one of the most powerful assets that is easily within reach, which is to strengthen our relationships with people from different generations. In my own life, my climate activism was inspired by a true icon who spoke yesterday, Jane Fonda. I was encouraged to join the Fire Drill Fridays movement and to participate in nonviolent civil disobedience. That was something that I approached with a little bit of trepidation. I worried that if I got an arrest on my record, which didn't end up happening, but there was a risk of it, I worried if that happened, it might make it difficult to find my next job. But it actually turned out to be the pathway to my next job, and I'm currently development director at Climate Emergency Fund, where our co-founding board members, Eileen Getty and Rory Kennedy, were also participating in those acts of civil disobedience along with the great Jane Fonda. That is truly the heart of the work that we are trying to support at Climate Emergency Fund, disruptive, nonviolent engagement that is diverse and inclusive, that brings together people from all walks of life, from all generations, in collective resistance, really gathering out of optimism that we can solve this if we work together and that solutions are within reach. So it's a pleasure to be here today with people who are also living these values. I am a blonde woman. I use she, her pronouns, and I will kick it off with a question for Genesis and Pooja, who are wonderful and experienced activists from Gen Z and the millennial generation. What gives you hope, and what is the greatest strength in each of your generations?
So my name is Genesis Butler, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm Afro-Indigenous. I'm 16 years old, and I'm wearing a black blazer. So for my question, I would say 3 things that are super positive about my generation is that, first, I would say that we're super optimistic, which I think is really needed because the climate crisis can really get everyone down, and we can feel very sad and scared about it, but I think that a lot of us realize that it's important to look at the positive and to always stay super optimistic. And a lot of activists that I've met have always been so optimistic, and it also kind of really goes on to others and shows people that it's important to look at the positives, which I think is what we all really need right now. And I would also say something that is super positive is that we're not waiting to be the future leaders. We want to be today's leaders, and we're the ones that are going out here. We're doing marches and rallies. We're getting this work done because we know that we can't wait for world leaders to do these actions. We want to be the leaders, and we want to take action. And I think that that is something that is super amazing and I love about my generation. And the last thing I would say kind of has to go with that is that we're not afraid to use our voice. And I know that generations before have been afraid sometimes to use their voice, but I think something about this generation that really stands out to me is that we figure out about these issues and we don't just sit and wait for something to be done. We figure out what can we do now, how can we get this done. And I think also with my organization Youth Climate Save, which has to do with other generations can also kind of take this and start to use it, is that you also can support other causes. And I think that when people are really all united all together, it really helps to show why it is so important and that there's so many people fighting for these causes, because I think it's super important for people not to feel alone and to know that they can be united. And something that really showed me that was my great-great-uncle Cesar Chavez, and he always had people who he would fight with, and that really showed me the importance of being united. And I started Youth Climate Save during quarantine, and Youth Climate Save is a organization, we talk about the connection between animal agriculture and climate change, and we realized the importance of it because not a lot of people were talking about it. They were talking about fossil fuels, but animal agriculture was being left out. So we started that, and I started that during quarantine, and we do actions, and there's a lot of activists who are a part of it who aren't only talking about animal agriculture, but we have activists who talk about plastic pollution and fast fashion. So it really shows to support other causes and to be united because we're more powerful when we're united together.
Thank you so much. That's so true and well stated. Pooja, what's your perspective on the millennial generation?
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Pooja Tilvawala. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I was born in India, but grew up in the suburbs of Philly. Today, I've got I guess I'll shout out for Philly. Let's go. So today, I've got my hair down. It's black hair that's semi-dyed still, and a green jumpsuit. And I run this org called Youth Climate Collaborative. We're trying to create a more just, inclusive, and intergenerational climate movement for all. So 3 points that I'd like to share for this question. I think the approach of my generation for taking climate action is a friendship-first approach. So we take the time to look each other in the eyes, say, hey, who are you? Where are you coming from? You know, what are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What are your struggles? There's so much unity and shared momentum that you get when you identify, when you have dreams that are aligned, when you have struggles that you face that are shared. And now I have like 50 different couches around the world that I have a place to crash at, right? That's another bonus. Then another approach that we take is a peer-to-peer learning approach. So when we learn about each other's work, each other's projects, we become mentors for each other. And we share insights, we share connections, we share opportunities. You know, like this opportunity that brought me here, you know, being friends with some organizers here who know my work and whose work that I support. And so we support each other to give us the platforms to get our opinions out there and really mobilize and inspire more youth for climate action. And then the third thing that I want to say is that we really acknowledge the value of experience. So we know and we understand that the generations, like older generations, they have that experience that comes with time that we don't have. And we have that humility to look at ourselves and say, you know, this is a point or an area that we are a little bit weak, right? We just haven't had that time yet to really see over decades how social movements have run their course. And so we look to our elders for that wisdom, and we extend our hand to say, let's do this together. So I think that's a humility that we'd also like to see or, you know, given to us. So for like the elders out here, how many of you have taken the time during this conference to say hi and greet somebody who's young, who's like under 30 here at this conference? Okay, that's good, that's good. That's not always the case, right? Usually it's like young people going to older ones to say hi and get to know their work. I'll end there and we'll get to say more later. Thank you.
Amazing. And now we're going to turn it over to Rebecca and Lauren. And we'd love to hear a little bit about, you have a relationship, you have a story, you have a project you're working on jointly. You are modeling this intergenerational relationship and collaboration. And so, you know, however you want to go first or, you know, talk together, just would love to hear more about your project, how you started working together, and we'll get to dive in a little bit deeper.
I'll go first. Sio Nagad, Lauren Waters Dawado. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Waters. I'm a Cherokee Nation and Kiowa tribal citizen from Tulsa, Oklahoma on the Muskogee Creek Nation Reservation. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm wearing a black jumpsuit, and I have medium-length brown hair. I am a filmmaker, and I work on some shows, one on Hulu called Reservation Dogs as a background casting director. it's a really great show to work on. I've also worked on the new Martin Scorsese film that's coming out called Killers of the Flower Moon that was filmed in Oklahoma. And then on the side, I have some documentary projects that I'm working on, and one is with Rebecca. So I feel like whenever I first started this short documentary project, it wasn't, I didn't really have this idea in mind of having this bond as much, or thinking about it in a way of like, oh, we are intergenerational. It was just, I was really inspired by Rebecca's story and her work on the ground, which she's going to tell you more about. If you want to talk about, your work, and then I can get into the film aspect of it. Yeah.
All right. So my name's Rebecca Jim, and I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation, and I used to have really dark hair, but it's not quite that way anymore. It's very short, and I'm wearing a black outfit with a little bit of beadwork that's colorful, red and blue. I am a water keeper. I'm the Tar Creek keeper. It's one of the smallest creeks represented by the Waterkeeper Alliance. I run a nonprofit organization named Lead Agency, and it's the only environmental justice agency or organization in Northeast Oklahoma. We deal with a Superfund site that bleeds through our whole county and bleeds into the Grand Lake of the Cherokees and poisons our fish and has poisoned our children. I am hoping that the story that Lauren will tell will explain how we can love water that's even damaged.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I think, round of applause for Rebecca. We're in Hollywood and we're talking about storytelling, and I think one of the things that I've seen consistently in this industry when it comes to climate storytelling is that it can be daunting, it can be really sad, and honestly, it's hard for me to watch that kind of thing. And so whenever I learned about Rebecca's work in advocacy in northeastern Oklahoma, which is tribal land, and I just felt like I wanted to do this story justice in a different way. And so part of the approach that I'm taking with it is having Rebecca not necessarily be the lead of the story, but more the through line of it, and then the main character being the place of Tar Creek, because as Indigenous people, we have a really strong connection to where we come from, and I really want to just highlight what her vision is for this place, what she's working so hard for, that really inspires me. So, for example, we can't forage for our basket weaving materials, we can't forage our traditional foods and our medicines, and I want us to be able to show that, or even memories that you have by the lakes, by the creeks, or on the beach, those things we can't do, where Rebecca is working, and that's pretty devastating when you think about growing up in that place. And so I kind of want to do reframe it a bit and have it be inspirational. And so it's in the works right now. We're in production. I hope to be done, by the fall and be able to put it into the festival circuit. But I think, one of the most important parts of it through being in the storytelling space is this community-led storytelling approach, in that I, am asking Rebecca what is best to include in the story, and then also what's best for the community, because even though I'm a part of this community, I still think that there's something to learning from her and her knowledge and listening to her, and not just coming in with ideas of what I think would be good, because you can be harmful in your own communities, and I think that is something that we may not understand. We feel like we can just go in and have a privilege to think we know what's best. But I think, with this whole process, I've just been really taking the time to build this relationship with Rebecca, get to know her and her work, mainly because I care, not necessarily because of the film, but I think it just adds to that aspect of, what we're going to show in this film. And then at the end, I think this industry historically has been extremely extractive. And, people come into our communities, want to tell our stories, and then leave and never screen the films in our areas. And then it's like, well, whatever happened to that project? And I don't want to do that. And so one of the things that I have already planned, even though I don't have the film done yet, is a community event where I was able to get a grant to have climate activists come in who are Indigenous and also screen their work and tell their stories and inspire the community to invest more in the work that Rebecca is doing. So that will happen, and screen the film after, hopefully sometime in the spring. So, yeah.
So you see, it's going to be really special. And one word that you used was extraction. And I think that's the other part of our story, is the fact that we don't want any other tar creeks. We don't want any more streams and precious water flows to be ruined from extraction. And that's happening in so many places. That's what's happened to us from I would say it was lead and zinc mining that ruined our area. And we don't want that for other extraction on the new climate solutions, the other places that will be damaged. We really need people to protect that land and let's think about how else we can do that work and not extract from our earth.
Yeah, thank you all for having us.
One more question, since one of the key actions will be around how we challenge the audience to think about their own intergenerational relationships and how they can bring that to their work on climate justice. What advice do you have for the audience in terms of building a meaningful intergenerational relationship? And that's a starting point that will lead to meaningful collaboration.
Well, I'd love to start with that. I think our only hope are the young people, because we've really messed this world up. We've got to keep working, but we really need to encourage our youth. We need them and value them so very much. And whether it's filmmaking, whatever it is, if they're speaking up, others can hear. Thank you.
I think one of the things that we've been able to do in building this relationship and connection is just, we have this goal to tell this story, but it's not everything. I think that there's always this urgency to do the next thing, to move quickly, especially in the film industry. It's like time is money, and I get that to some extent. But I think that there's a huge value in being able to slow down and spend time not focusing on the film or project that you're working on, and just like tell stories and be intentional with that. And through that, I've learned so much that I never even thought I would know. And one of the things, in my culture that I was taught is that with your elders and when you're spending time in community, you learn things when you're supposed to. You're not necessarily asking a question to the elders or asking what this knowledge is because you don't even know what to ask. And then that is kind of what I've been able to take away from the relationship with Rebecca is, we'll be talking on the phone and she'll be talking to me about these plants that are that she's like had around her house and explains them to me. And the other day she was in a hazmat suit, picking out this like really toxic plant, hemlock, right, that had been growing. And I'm like, I had no idea what this was. And thank you for this story, because like now I'm learning and building that connection and relationship to the land. And so I think my advice would just be to try to find somebody that you can genuinely build that connection with in your community who may already be doing the work that you admire or want to do, and then spend time with them outside of a goal of a project. And I think that's where we've been able to build this relationship, and I'm really grateful for Rebecca. Thank you.
Amazing. One final thought, just to challenge everyone in the audience. I'm very much contemplating just what does it mean being midlife. I'm not young anymore. I'm not yet older. And I'm really focusing on how I'm constantly trying to surround myself with people both younger and older and of the same generation. There's so much we can all learn from each other, but often we get in our own bubbles of people like us. So just keep trying to look for both older and younger. There's so much wisdom from everyone.
That's such a great point, and I think really a compelling challenge for everyone. I've gained so much from friendships that are both on the older and the younger side from myself. Now, turning to Stephanie Shu and intergenerational relationships on screen. You have acted in and been part of quite a few intergenerational stories, most notably recently, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Your relationship with your mother was a theme. What has acting in these stories taught you about the importance of intergenerational relationships, both on and off screen, and in those places and in those relationships? How can we find joy?
Hello. I'm Stephanie Shu. I use she, her, hers as my pronouns. I just got a haircut. So it's I got a short little black bob happening, all white. Someone's holding flowers on my shirt. I am so happy to be here, and I feel so lucky to be here with you all and feel like I'm learning so much already. I think I got kind of folded into this because yes, I'm an actor, but also I'm really passionate about climate justice, specifically regenerative agriculture and food justice, and finding sort of coercive ways to fold that into a very extractive and wasteful film industry. I don't have the answers, but I am desperate to listen and understand how we can work together to make the film industry more sustainable and healthier. And also regenerate our soil at the same time. Alrighty, okay, so yeah, I did a movie, and I think, something I've been thinking about, one thing that came out of working on that film was I myself learned how many other people experience this thing called intergenerational trauma. When we were filming it, we weren't really talking about it. We just had experienced it in our own bones and just told the story as true to our experience as possible. And it somehow opened up this portal of conversation that so many people maybe didn't even have that as a touchstone name to talk about. And so it's been really beautiful to witness how that has been flowing through so many generations, even before I was born. But something that I've been thinking about is the importance of also naming and talking about intergenerational healing. And I feel like what happened last year, James Hong, who played the grandfather in our movie, he's 95 years old. The year he was born was the first year of the Academy Awards, and this past year, he got to sit in the front row, and he got to experience Michelle being the first Asian actress to win a leading actress, but one of those doodads. But I think that's such a beautiful, I just think back to that lifetime, right? Just in this lifetime, we are experiencing this first together. And I was really resonating with what Rebecca was saying of how do you love water that actually, how do you still love water that maybe has been polluted? Because I do think we have this tendency, I'll say what I experience is a tendency to dispose of or to try to find it elsewhere. And the truth is that we are literally all here in this together. It doesn't matter how deep into the ocean you go. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, it's still all here. So finding ways to know that what we have and what we're experiencing is something for us to move through together, and that there is literally no way out but through. And the joy of that is getting to look beside you and see someone who's 95 having their first. Yeah, I feel so inspired because it is so easy to be so sad and feel like we're so past a tipping point. But I feel like hearing you all talk, what it's inspiring me is to remember it doesn't even matter really if we're past the tipping point, because we're still here and we're still holding the picture together. So, yeah.
Thank you. In terms of representation, which we all know is so important and always, how do you find, or how do you define the meaning of Hollywood representing intergenerational stories, and what do you think the potential for impact is in that representation on screen? How can we translate that to action in real life?
Okay, so this is kind of an answer, but not an answer to exactly your question, but I've been thinking about it, so I'll share. Obviously, we know representation is so important in so many different ways, but because this is a climate summit, I've been thinking about how, back in the day, they were really trying to get people to wear seatbelts. So there was like a huge initiative for Hollywood films to show people wearing seatbelts. And maybe the scene was like not about anything related to safety. It's just like mom and dad going to work, but they'd be like, And so I've been thinking about the importance of subliminal messaging, which, let's be honest, is a form of storytelling and definitely advertising. So, I sometimes will joke with the Daniels, actually, of like, what if you have this like crazy sci-fi film, but then someone just like composts, and like finding ways that we can integrate. I mean, it's sort of silly, but like finding ways to kind of shift the version of a household that we have historically seen and integrate it into our ways of showing a really domestic household, and how that might be helpful. Like, instead of seeing so much disposability in a film, seeing subtle ways in which people are being mindful about usage. Yeah.
That's inspiring and
seatbelts,
definitely answers
compost.
Thank you so much.
And Mimi, over to you. We are so thrilled to have you showing us all the power and potential of the boomer generation. And she does it with so much flair, so I can't wait. Most recently, you've been on the hit sitcom Mom. And also that is a show that is so powerful in terms of talking about serious subjects with a lot of comedy and a lot of love and a lot of badass women like we have on this panel. And so just curious, your long career, you've done a lot of things, you've seen a lot of things, you've seen a lot of changes. Like, how has your perspective changed in your own different life stages? And what have you seen evolve? And how has your own empathy evolved as you've gone through them and as you played them in different roles?
Yeah, okay. I'm also having that same thing. I think someone is turning these on that I don't have any control over. Do I? Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, it's changed a lot. I've been sitting here thinking I went into a variety show once where one of the senior male writers said, "You're what we call a talking woman. We can give you lines. You're not here just to look good." And it was a time when people felt very comfortable not only saying that to me, but to carrying that image in their head as something Hollywood gave the world. So on Mom, which is, by the way, I'm a white woman in my 70s. I have long gray hair and palazzo pants I bought in Italy. Thank you. But anyway, I was recently on Mom for 8 years, and what I loved about that show was it was a mother and daughter, and they were healing because they were both in AA, and that meant they were looking at their addiction, at their experience. They were mourning the loss of time they had lost when they were addicted, and they were rebuilding connection and learning from listening to other people's stories. I think that is something that the world is healing with. It's worldwide, that particular program. One of the things that our generation has brought, both in Hollywood is a palliative. It's palliative care for America. And I've just learned palliative care isn't just about dying. It's all the way through your life. How do you care for yourself, keep the anxiety down, and not freak out and act out in ways that are harmful to yourself and other people? So we see pictures and stories, drama, purges, pity, and terror, as the Greeks told us. And then comedy is about human foibles. So human nature never changes. It's always the same. Well, I think we're changing. Humanity is changing. And my generation of old people have lived by religion, Doesn't matter which religion, but they've made up some religion that they live by, and it's honorable, full of dignity for them, and it's given them meaning. So that's going to be hard to let go. But as one of these candidates said, who are very, very devout, it's not about earth, it's about man, meaning the human story is what it's about. Earth, heh. And I wanted to ask, what did you eat today? It came from the earth. Your body came from the earth. So there's a humility that I think the younger generation understands, and I think you're bringing something in with you. I don't know that wonderful movie you did with the multiverses. I kind of think, thank you for that one. Huh? Let us think about that. But my generation is holding on hard to how the next generation should be and what the human story should be. It's reproduction. It's two people get together and it keeps going. At the same time, there's a panic because they all believed at the millennium, 2000, something big was going to happen. I come from a mother who lived through the Depression, World War II. Her mother was married before women could vote. World War II ended with the huge atomic explosion, and a lot of men think things end with an explosion, and let's move on to the next world that's pure. It's pure, and it's not, women, no, different. So I just want to say that one of the beautiful things that's changing is old people, me, understand that we're getting closer to that liminal space where the body gives out, but earth and the story goes on. So we begin to respect the generosity of earth around us, the profusion of plants, the profusion. And if the water is drying up, then we need to look and see, well, what's that's about? Use less. My son brilliantly said at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, laughing at me, he said, Mom, you mean the apocalypse is just going to be a lot of people saying we can get along with less? And I said, yeah. I think from our upper middle class point of view, it's exactly what it's going to be. And his children and wife, she's from Japan, and they used to clean their school on the weekends in Japan, the children. They go out and clean up garbage somewhere in a park or on the beach. It's called Overdue, and they've organized it. I'm glad you know. I've seen Hollywood change because I walk into rehearsal rooms now, and there is not a big wall of plastic water bottles. Yeah. That's changed. But I don't know if I've answered your question, but I will say that each of us carries the experience, and so did our parents. And I think women understand that humanity is changing, and it doesn't mean it doesn't need nurture and care. We need to nurture and care, and the men know it too, and the people whose pronouns are not he, she, but they, that's what that old Bible said God was, they. So hello and welcome.
So we're at time, and I can't believe it. But I did want to offer, just because everyone got their question, I just wanted to offer one final speed round where anyone can comment on anything that's been said. And we might start with Stephanie, because she may need to portal to another universe in a second.
Oh my gosh, okay, speed round. Oh gosh, you did that. I just feel, actually I want to call out Genesis and the abundance of hope. I feel like I am getting so old sometimes, and I'm like, about everything, and just to hear you talk about hope, and it just is inspiring me, humbling me to stop all that like doubting, because actually there's no room to doubt. We just have to believe. We have to believe for the generation that even comes after you. So poo-poo with that, and I just thank you for overflowing us with your positivity, your hope, your possibility, and grounding us in that. So thank you. Mm-hmm.
In any order, any reflections on anything that was sparked from the panel?
I'm going to say one thing. I was once at a sort of guru was talking, and a white woman raised her hand and went, well, when is the world going to end? And I said, the world has ended for many people. Many, many groups of people have had their whole world end, and the world has gone on. And each one of us will have the world end when we depart this body. So stop worrying about that and think about what you love here now and try to care for it and make it better. Get along with less.
I want to share two things. One is that I think that as we all get older and older, sometimes we forget what it was like to be when we were 40, when we were 30, when we were 27, 16, 5, right? And at all of those ages, we had our own dreams, wishes, desires, visions, and all that we wanted was to be seen, feel heard, feel valued, feel that our elders, our peers, were taking the time to listen to all of us and understand what is it that we also want to see in terms of change in the world, and just to feel that our perspectives are being heard and understood, right? And so I would urge everyone and encourage everyone to try and remember what it felt like to be, X age, however many years ago it was, and that way kind of relate to all the people that, all the ages that came before the age that you are right now. And then in terms of Hollywood, I wanted to mention films like Turning Red, Dead Poets Society, Minari. They show these multi-generational households and just exchange between generations. Like in Turning Red, the young daughter was helping her mom, who was the biggest red panda, or I forgot exactly the animal. I think red panda, right? Yeah, she was this huge red panda, right? And she helped her mom understand the emotions that she had held on to and went through due to her own mother, and across generations. So we are seeing positive trends like that in Hollywood, and that's been great to see. Thank you.
Oh, I feel pressured to say something inspirational, but I think, one of the people that inspires me the most is Joy Harjo. She's the first Native American poet, U.S. poet laureate, and she wrote this poem called Map to the Next World, and you can look it up, but there's this one line that really stuck with me, and she says, "We used to know the names of the birds here. In this lush promise, we used to know everything." And so whenever I think about my work, working in the film industry, it's not necessarily real. This can all be gone in a matter of moments. And I think, what would I want if this was all gone, if the world were to end or whatever. And I think it really is that connection to place and knowing the names of the birds, where I come from, and being, with the people that I love. And that's, I think, what is my driving force every day, and learning, reconnecting, I guess, to what that means to me. And I guess I would encourage everyone to define that for themselves and reconnect to that, whether it's culture, whether it's, our non-human relations, language. And yeah, again, thank you so much for having me.
For a thought that I have, I would say, well, first, I'm really honored to be here. And one thought that I always love to tell people is a quote that I love, which is, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." And I think that is such a powerful quote to always remember, is that this earth that we're on, this isn't just our earth and then it's gone, you can just throw it away, whatever. This is our planet for everyone, and we're borrowing this planet. So just to remember with your choices that the choice that you're making today will impact your future, our future, everyone's future on this planet, because the climate crisis is impacting us all. So just to remember that quote.
Rebecca, if you have any final thoughts, then we'll close out.
I really want to thank you all for sharing deeply thoughts that you've held. Maybe you had not spoken aloud before. That's really taken me. It takes me back to those decades that I've lived through, and remembering who I was, and remembering what I saw, and trying to remember those birds that I live with, and knowing the plants that I see every day. So thank you. I enjoy this world, and I want us to do all we can to protect it for others that come after us. Thank you.
Okay, so we just want to thank all of our panelists for their thoughts and deep listening, deep respect, deep insight. So thank you to all the panelists. That was so inspirational. And we now have a part 2. So post-panel, we want to move from, thank you everybody, feel free to head out whenever you want. We're moving to an interactive portion. So we are going to encourage you, part 1 of the call to action is take 15 minutes and turn to the people next to you, maybe in groups of 3 or 4. Hopefully you are across different generational spans. And then we would really encourage you to share deeply from your heart about any of these questions. And again, as was mentioned earlier today, connection and relationships is a key part of how we're going to address the climate crisis together, and we want to create space for that. So please, we invite you to stay for the next 15 minutes, and some of the panelists and moderators will also join you. So thanks.
I'm here to spill the beans on the big C. Fellas don't think it's real. Us ladies can't even talk about it. And for everyone in between and whatnot, forget about it. We can't even admit we have a big C. But lucky for you, I'm here to help. I know everything that has to do with the big climate crisis. The climate crisis is a result of a highly abundant resource that is constantly extracted. Most people think that this resource is fossil fuels. In reality, it's not. This resource is people. Climate change is something that we'll have to weather together. We have to reclaim our labor in all of its diverse forms that celebrate our different bodies, cultures, and ways of living on planet Earth. It's not about going back. It's about remembering our way forward. It's about working together to solve the big C.
To define what society needs.
AI won't kill us before climate change.
Some people say it's the most dangerous animal out here, but it's not.
What is?
We are.
It starts with votes like this one. It starts with you.
Now go. I'm ready to blow minds with affordable 100% solar-powered green housing.
Okay, my mind is actually blown.
You have a yam man.
My friend Jacob, he's an organic grower and one of my top 12 favorite people.
Are you like a scientist?
Yes, 99.78% to be exact.
Oh, great. Okay, so it's not 100%.
Call it 70% and let's move on.
We did everything we could. We brought our own bags.
I saw a kid litter and I started crying because nobody cares about the planet.
I always tried to leave things better than I found them.
How about we ban plastic from the state of California?
You are the solution.
Wow, this is so cool.
quoi là? Couper le moteur?
Oui, bien sûr.
Bah faut penser à la planète un petit peu.
Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme. Put a line in the rhyme and a little more rhyme.